All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is David Shurter. He's the author of Rabbit Hole. And let me give you a little bit of background on this. Many years ago, probably around 1996, after I had started the Free American, I started carrying books, and one of those books I carried was by former Senator John DeCamp on the Franklin cover-up. I had John on my show many times, and we tracked it a little bit deeper. We found a woman whose son had been pretty much abducted, and did the story on this. David, you say that on your webpage, which is linked to mine, by the way, the satanic ritual abuse was highly popularized in the mid-90s.
Yes, it was.
And
yes, it was.
You got involved in this?
Well, I was actually born into it. My father was a high priest, a practicing high priest here in Omaha, while it was going on. That was in the 50s and 60s and 70s. I mean, this has been going on for quite some time. It exploded with Franklin Credit Union. The reason why it exploded with Franklin is because they figured out that there was a child prostitution ring that was going all the way to the White House. And that was when John DeCamp got involved, and a lot of people got involved to expose what was going on in Omaha, Nebraska at the time. And it's not, I tell people that my father was a practicing high priest, but a lot of this was a child abduction ring. It was drugs and guns and children being trafficked. And so, just kind of a mix of all of it.
Now, you know, I've been doing stories on the drug running. The drug running in this country is all privatized. It comes through the CIA or the Mossad or other intelligence units, probably over in Britain. What about the now? Also, I did stories with and interviewed and became friends with Kathy O'Brien, and she says her daughter was molested by George Bush Sr.
George Bush Sr. was heavily involved in the things that were going on in Omaha, Nebraska, and Franklin.
Hold on, you just broke up on me, David. David, you're breaking up on me. I can't hear you. Let me call you right back. If you can hear me, I'll call you right back. I don't think they necessarily want you to hear this story today, folks. David, trying to put you back together again. David, are you with me? David, I can't hear you. I don't know what's going on here, David. Let me try it again.
Hi, you've reached me, but I can't get to the phone right now. So if you leave a message and a phone number, I'll call you back as soon as I can. Thanks a lot.
David, are you there?
Hey.
All right.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can now.
Okay, I tell you what. Can I give you my house phone number? Well, I'm on a cell phone, and the cell phone sometimes breaks up, and the house phone is probably going to be easier.
Yes, sir. Hold on just a second here. I generally don't reveal.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Go ahead and give that to me.
It's 712-256-5173.
Okay, I'll call you right back on that.
Okay.
Bear with me, folks.
Hello.
Hello, gotcha?
Sorry about my phone is generally fine. My cell phone is generally fine until I get into these conversations on people who are interviewing me. And then my phone seems to go crazy. I don't know what it is.
It's this show is monitored on a daily basis, and they've even had the Homeland Security vans go up to some of my guests before the show, wanting to know why they were going to be on the Clay Douglas show.
I am working extensively with a man named Doug Millar.
I know Doug very well. I've known him for years.
And I met him. My phone worked fine until I decided to go out to Colorado and meet him in person. And ever since I have met him in person, my phone has had problems ever since. But I know that I'm being heavily monitored as well. My blog and all of that, they're really trying to hold me down and keep me quiet.
They don't want this information. Kathy O'Brien had to move to Thailand or someplace like that to be safe.
Oh, yeah. The only reason why I think that I'm safe with all of this is because I'm not anywhere near isolated. I have a great deal of many people around me all the time. And so it would be very difficult to attack me. Not that I haven't been attacked with this all before, but they want to keep people such as ourselves down and keep the information from coming out because they don't want anybody to hear what's going on.
You know, I have a book out too. I've got Mystery Babylon out, and in that I've documented the whole Homeland Security thing, why the Homeland Security went after Christian identity, why they went after the militias, and you know, after I started the militia in New Mexico in 1994, ADL gives me credit for doing that, and then suddenly I can't make any money. Nobody wants to advertise. Nobody wants to do that because they get threatening phone calls. Now, I blew the whistle on George Bush in Mystery Babylon. I blew the whistle on George Bush's Operation Watchtower when he was CIA director. He ran right alongside Iran-Contra. And I blew the whistle on it. I printed the story. Colonel Edward P. Cotolo was told the story of Operation Watchtower. He was in command. And that's the first time the CIA threatened me. Now, tell me about your situation here. How are you now? And what's the difference now? Is your family Jewish?
My family was Jewish. We were Jewish until my grandmother Shurter removed our family from the Jewish religion. And the reason why she did so is because at that time she was a social climber, and it was hard to climb the social ladder when you were Jewish at the time. And so our family is a history of Judaism. I believe that this satanic aspect that our family is involved with, I believe that it has everything to do with our Jewish heritage roots. And so, yes, to answer your question, I've done a lot of research and realized that it's funny, I still have a lot of Jewish belief systems within myself that I didn't realize were Jewish until I started to actually study the religion. And so our family was Jewish up until probably, I'd say, 1970. Between 1970 and 1980 is when my grandmother Shurter took us out of the religion, and my dad never practiced anything, so other than Satanism.
I read stories written by Jews that basically say that the Jewish God is Satan, and that the whole thing is, you know, we know that the occult, the Jewish occult Kabbalah, you know, cultism is certainly practiced by that. But what was your life like? What was your life like with a satanic family? How did it? I find it strange that people go to church every day, but Jesus has never showed me his ID, so I haven't accepted anybody as my Lord and Master. And because that sounds like a satanic thing too. Have you given your soul to Jesus yet? Well, what if that's Satan pretending to be Jesus? I haven't seen his ID. Tell me, did Christianity? The Constitution protects you. Whatever religion you want to follow, knock yourself out. You want to hug trees, you want to beat your head against wailing walls, you want to stick your nose in the dirt and your ass up in the air, do it. You want to grovel on your knees for a Cadillac, I just hope that God don't drop it on you. But
yeah, exactly.
To me, it's real simple. We've got good and evil. If you want to help people, you don't want to hurt people, and you really raised your level of vibrational energy, your love index, then it doesn't matter who you were born, where you were born, what religion you were born into, what part of the country. We all got a direct connection with the deity that whatever made us, or whatever holds our atoms together. We don't need.
And that's what I believe. That's what I believe. Because Satanism was so closely connected with Christianity, I have a very difficult time with Christianity, and I am a firm believer in God. No one could ever shake my faith in God. But this whole born again, I just read something the other day that said, instead of being born again, why don't you just try to grow up? And that's really, what I look for. Because Satanism was forced in my life so hard, and a lot of the people who were practicing Satanism were also attending Catholic churches, the Jewish synagogues. They were very big churchgoers on Sundays, but on Saturday night, they were doing something completely different, Friday and Saturday night. And so I just don't have any respect. I don't have any faith in the religions, but I believe in spirituality, and I firmly believe in God.
Well, I have my own sort of cosmology. If you're omnipotent and omniscient, I'll ask you this. You seem to be a good person to ask this question. If you're omniscient, omnipotent, and you're the only one of your kind in this part of the universe, what are you?
See, that's just it. You're all by yourself is what you are.
I think you would have to be bored shitless. So what do you do?
Oh yeah.
You create us with a little bit of your divinity that we call the soul, and you give us free will, and we provide all of your intrigue, all of your romance, all of your excitement, all of your danger, because you ain't worried about dying. That's us. He created us to, and I think Shakespeare had it right. The whole world's a stage.
And that's just it. The whole world is a stage. I basically believe, this is how I've basically grown up with. I believe that there was God the Knowing, which is completely, all knows itself, is totally aware of itself, but that God wanted to experience life instead of knowing life. And so I believe that God kind of separated in half. And so there's the God the knowing and God the experiencing. And we're in God the experiencing, the realm of God experiencing God. And so the whole thing about it is that is what is so fundamental about personal choice. Is that you make the personal choice to live a full life, or you make the personal choice to live like a dog and hurt people and all of that. And so life is a stage. You just can't control anything. The only thing constant is change. And really the best way to prepare yourself for life is to actually be able to let that change flow through you and adjust accordingly. That's how I survived what I went through as a kid.
Now, what did you go? Let's talk about that. What was it like for you? You're in a house. your father is a high priest. Is this was he in the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey's, or did he just practice on his own? You know, I mean, I studied magic. I studied Aleister Crowley. I read Aleister Crowley. I read Blavatsky. I've done all that, and but I'm not much of a joiner, so I was never in a coven. I never did anything. I just studied it, just like I do Christianity, Judaism, and the Muslims.
Well, basically in our family, you never talked about the Satanism. It was a very quiet thing. It was practiced on the weekends and on certain high holidays. It was practiced, but it was never really spoken about. As I grew up as a kid, I cannot tell you how many sacrifices, child sacrifices, I went through as a kid, as well as my brothers and sisters. There were a lot of sacrifices. There was a lot of child abduction rings going. There was a child abduction ring going on at the time, which was heavily connected. You mentioned Iran-Contra. Well, the drugs, the coke was coming in from the Contras at Offutt Air Force Base. And so all of this was kind of connected in Omaha. That's what makes the story so difficult, because it's a cult behavior. The cult behavior is somewhat mixed in with a government project called MKUltra.
Yes.
That's kind of mixed in, and then you have the drug trade coming in from the Offutt Air Force Base, and everyone being flown around from Offutt Air Force Base. And so you have the Iran-Contra, you have MKUltra, you have a child abduction ring, and then all of the stuff that goes around with it. And so it was kind of a mixture. As a kid, we just never spoke about it. As an adult, when I got to be an adult and I came back to Omaha, the same people who were involved with this enmeshed themselves into my life. And I was involved with it to a degree as a young adult, even though my mother kept me out of it. Alan Baer was interested with me. Alan Baer was involved with the Franklin Credit Union. I talk about him extensively in my book. And he was trying to get me involved with the drugs and the child trafficking, and my mother wouldn't have anything to do with it and kept me away from him. But as an adult, this basically took over my young adulthood. I had friends who got involved with it who got murdered. I just basically lost my young adulthood to all of this, as well as my childhood. And I started putting this together after my father died. In 2006, I started to allow myself to dig into my past, and that was when I started to put all of it together. And it all started to make sense, and then I wrote a book to see it in black and white. And then a few people read my book and told me that I needed to share it with people, and so I went and got it published.
And did you have any problem getting it published?
I self-published because I wanted to keep the artistic integrity of the investigation into it. I was afraid that they would take my book and, Quentin Tarantino it and make it into something that I didn't want it to be. I didn't want it to be all about the abuse. I wanted to explain what was going on and not glorify the abuse. But since I published the book, my stepmother, who was involved in this child abduction ring, along with my father, who is still alive, her cousin, who is also her lawyer, has sent out probably, I'd say, 18 letters to everybody trying to threaten them from preventing them from selling my book. And in fact, I have a bookseller in town who had a 3 o'clock visitor while he was taking out his dog at 3 o'clock, who showed up and threatened him to keep him from publishing or from selling my book.
They did that with the Free American. I would put it in gun stores when I got started, when there was just a newspaper. I'd put it in gun stores, and they'd have customers that would come in and say, "Oh, you're carrying this rag in here? Well, I'm going to tell all of my people never to do business with you again."
Yeah.
I had one of my magazines sold for $500,000. I still retained half of it. We signed the contract on Thursday, put a press release out on Wall Street on Friday. I walked in the office Monday, and the CEO's white and shaking and going, "I can't go through with the deal, Clay. I can't go through with the deal. They're threatening to impeach me from a publicly traded company."
Yeah.
So this kind of this kind of thing happens, and they don't want. Why don't they? It's almost been popularized in the movies. I mean, anytime Hollywood starts programming you, I would be a little bit suspicious. But why would they not want your story to get out? I mean, we've had Jewish women come up on Oprah, for God's sake, saying they were involved in satanic rituals. Why don't they want to hear you? What's the difference?
The difference is that my stepmother is. My father, before he died, was telling people that he had skeletons in his closet. And I personally believe that was not only figuratively, but it could be literally as well, considering the fact that he completely redid his bedroom closet and made a platform bed. And designed it all and built it all himself. And so I believe that my stepmother is trying to keep me from telling the story so that people will listen, because the book is written so well that you don't come away from it thinking, oh wow, this guy's a wacko. You start to realize that what I'm saying is actually true and possible and plausible. And my stepmother, the letter that she sends out, basically her contention is that she's mad that I'm talking about her being in a child abduction ring and sacrificing children and being involved in cannibalism and being involved with satanic practices. And so her cousin, who is her lawyer, has been sending out these letters threatening them over and, threatening basically everybody. They even sent a letter to a place that I was buying cupcakes at for a book signing. And so they sent my cupcake ladies a letter. And the ladies basically called and asked, what are you doing? We just made him cupcakes. And they said, well, we just want to keep you out of, something that, an unseemly situation. And they basically said, we just make cupcakes. If they're good people or bad people, we don't ask if they're going to do good things or bad things with our cupcakes. We just sell them cupcakes. And so it's been almost humorous, except that I have booksellers who have gotten, late night phone calls or late night visitors threatening them, and he still won't sell my book because his wife and his house was threatened. They threatened to burn his house down with his wife in it. And so the mafia was heavily involved with what I'm dealing with in Omaha, Nebraska. The mafia and the Hells Angels were the ones who were transporting the drugs and the guns and the children. And they're still pretty active in Omaha, Nebraska, and they're trying to keep the book down so that the information can't get out. Because Omaha, the Franklin Credit Union has always been like this rumored, it has its own storyline, I think, the best way to put it. And people all still talk about it. And they're all still very interested about it. And my book just comes and puts it in perspective. And I don't think they like that.
Now,
like your magazine, you put things in perspective. Nobody wants anything put in perspective. They wanted to, we get programmed by the television. People think, oh, mind control is crazy. But when you watch your television, you're being mind controlled by your television.
Absolutely. I talk about that all the time. When I started the militias, I told people now, the best thing you can do, you take your weapon, you clean it, you load it, and you shoot the TV, and you'll be a lot better off. They don't call it programming for nothing. And
they don't.
The Jewish element in here controls all of our news, all of the input, all of the information, the Rothschilds in the late 1800s. And so they control it all. ABC, NBC, Walt Disney, these are all controlled by people of the Jewish faith. Now, and they're also issuing your money here. This ain't, because you were born into a Jewish family, don't make you a bad guy. But if you're in this, if you've taken the Kol Nidri, if you've taken the satanic oath, if you're, and I want to talk more about that, especially we're coming up in about 4 minutes on the second half. I want to talk about this because I'm not sure. I think this whole thing, both the religion and the satanic, I mean, this is, people are using Satanism as an excuse to be bad or to exercise their lower level thoughts and emotions. I mean, this is evil, you know. This is, but is there, you know, some guy, big guy with horns standing behind him, and you know that the Satanists are worshiping? They're worshiping Satan, and I'm not even sure that Lucifer is a good description for Satan, because I think Lucifer was probably they were probably describing Jesus more than they were some devil.
Well, the people that I grew up with in the Satanist stuff believed that the serpent was the real true God, and that God himself was tyrannical and ineffective and basically out of the picture. And the one that brought us intelligence and brought us choice and all of that was the serpent in the garden. And so I write at the very end of my book, I have a chapter in there where I explain the philosophies of Satanism that I grew up with and how I understood it. And the Satanism that they talk about, you talk about Anton LaVey. I was not so much involved with Anton LaVey, but I was directly connected to Colonel Michael Aquino.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about Aquino. This is Doug Millar has organized some protest and all that. Matter of fact, he has a, I believe, and you're the one that let me know. This is how we got in contact. That Doug had been arrested at one of these protests, protesting Aquino.
Yes, and the funny thing about it is that I have talked to Doug, and he is basically saying that it was totally, for him to get arrested, if you see the video of him getting arrested, it was totally atypical of his personality. He was very, he said that when he was there, he felt like he'd almost gotten targeted because he started to get all agitated and all of that while he was there. And I believe that he was targeted. People who were at the Bohemian Grove protest reported a white van that was there that had 40 antennas on it, about 40 antennas. And Doug was the only person arrested at the Bohemian Grove. And personally, I believe that they targeted him. They took his computer, they took his phone, they put him in jail. When they let him out of jail, they kept his computer and his phone for 4 or 5 days afterwards so that they could check it. And he knew that as well. And everything was returned to him, but 9 copies of my speech that I wrote for him for the Bohemian Grove, and about 30 copies of an article that he's trying to get Aquino to debate me, have a public debate. I've always wanted to have a public debate with Colonel Aquino.
Now tell me about your, tell us, let's elucidate a little bit more on this. We're coming up to the end of my first segment here. My guest today is David Shurter. He's the author of Rabbit Holes, Tales of Satanic Abuse Are True. We're talking about that. In the second half, I want to discuss Aquino, because he's been linked, I mean, to so much of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey and all that, and he seems to operate, probably been connected with the finders. And you've got personal experience. I want to hear about your personal experience in this second half here, and then I want to know why he's still walking around. I want to know why he's still alive. I want to know why he's not in jail. That's what I don't understand why our law enforcement cannot put some of these high-ranking people and bankers in jail. And by the way, folks, it is happening in the second half. I'm going to tell you, I've made the statement here on the show that I think that 2012 is maybe the end of the world, at least the banksters' world.